So BC recently introduced a 15% foreign buyers tax, which has got a lot of foreign buyers actually freaking out, and they're trying to get into the market as soon as possible before the August 2nd deadline. And I totally get why BC needs this tax, because Vancouver is a hotbed for global buyers looking for a second or third home and who like to use Canadian property as a Swiss bank account. And with prices rising rapidly and with all this volatility, it makes sense to invest or speculate in this region. But 15% is a really big number. And naturally, it's got a lot of people asking, will we have the same tax here in Toronto and the GTA? In today's episode, I will explain why I don't think we will get a tax like that anytime soon, why it is actually so difficult to actually classify someone as a foreign buyer, and how this tax could actually come to boost prices even further here in Toronto. So stay tuned for my opinion right after this. Foreign real estate buying is a hot button issue all across the country. And depending on who you ask, it could be a good thing if you're a homeowner, or a really bad and scary thing if you're on the outside looking in as a potential home buyer. Some argue that foreign buyers add no net benefit to the nation, as wealthy international buyers snatch up property, leave them sitting empty, and never actually live here, pricing some local people out of the market completely. Today's topic is not about whether this is a good or a bad thing and whether you agree with foreign markets or not. That can be up for debate. What I'm going to give you is my professional opinion on what I think is going to happen here, how you can make better decisions as a homeowner, but in particular, how to better position yourself if you're a future buyer in the Toronto market so that you might be able to take advantage of this wave of foreign buying. This is what I do on Selling Toronto. Okay, so let's get into this. The new tax introduced in BC is quite frankly just a test to see if the government can somehow cool the housing market and try to prevent outside foreign buyers from investing further. Vancouver is the leader in real estate in this country, I'm really sad to say, and what they're dealing with is something completely new, unprecedented, and it definitely is a bold move on the part of the government, which is why we're watching these developments very closely here in Toronto as well. Toronto, in my opinion, is not a market that's completely driven by foreign money and capital. Now, I won't deny that there is an impact on the marketplace. If you want to know the truth about what is really driving the market here in Toronto, check out the video I did last year. I'll post the link up in the video. Toronto usually likes to take things a little bit slower and a little more cautious. So we're obviously taking a very wait and see approach. I suspect it won't really have a huge impact on the Vancouver marketplace. There's also many loopholes to get around paying this tax. But truth be told, the run-up in the speculation is mostly driven by local money, believe it or not. A few things we need to remember is that the Canadian economy in 2016 is highly dependent on real estate, development, infrastructure, and trades. That's where all the real growth is happening, especially with what's happening in Alberta in oil and gas. Like the old cliche says, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. I guess that's probably one reason for why it took Vancouver so long to actually make a move, out of fear of disrupting the economy. We have to be very keenly aware of the differences between these two cities. Vancouver is a small island that is less than half the size, maybe more, than the size of Toronto. And with many surrounding mountains and green space and nature, it actually restricts a lot of residential living. The weather is milder, which appeals to people who are coming from the East Asian region. Plus, it's 4 to 5 hours closer by airplane than Toronto, and arguably it's more picturesque and beautiful. Okay, that's not really up for debate. Those coming from East Asia are primed for real estate buying and speculation because that's what they're used to in small, dense cities. So it's no wonder that Metro Vancouver serves as a perfect landing spot for many immigrants, investors, and for education purposes. But what is a foreign buyer anyway? There seems to be a lot of gray area. Even the government has a difficult time classifying who a foreign buyer actually is because there's so many different classes of permits and visas and statuses here in Canada. So there's true foreign buyers, the types of people who have no ties, who are strictly investors. They have no real reason to be in Canada other than wanting to buy property to wait for it to go up in value. Then there's permanent residents who need to stay a full 2 years out of a 5-year cycle. So they have similar rights to Canadian citizens, except they're still holding their origin country's passport. Then there's international students who are strictly here to study. They can buy property, surprisingly, without being taxed. Then there's business class and corporations, which many foreign buyers use as a vessel to purchase property. Then there's work permits. People are here with a special class of skills and trade who are here to work, and obviously they should be entitled to purchase property as well. And then there are naturalized Canadian citizens or immigrants. Pretty self-explanatory. What they say in Vancouver is that roughly 10% of all buyers are true foreign buyers. Meanwhile, local residents will argue that number is probably closer to 50 or even 60%. I think that number might be a little bit exaggerated because due to the heated nature of the topic, I think a lot of people are lumping Canadian citizens, permanent residents into that same category based on their ethnic origins, their appearance, and their names, of course, which is really not fair. What we know for a fact is that Vancouver's market is more directly driven by foreign capital and foreign buyers, more so than Toronto. Most developers in Toronto will quote a number of 5% or even 1% of that being actual foreign money. Although those numbers are rising, it's limited compared to the Vancouver market. So what is the real number of foreign buyers here in Toronto? Nobody knows. Not even the government knows, because they've only started to track these numbers out west in Vancouver right now. And even if they did, it would still be a pretty inaccurate representation of the true picture. And it really depends on who you define as foreign. I work in this market every single day as a real estate salesperson, analyst, and investor. And I'm smack dab in the epicenter of where a lot of the foreign money likes to buy. If I had to guess, the overall impact of foreign money in Toronto probably ranges somewhere between 10 to 30% at best, which means the rest of it is driven by the local market, by demographic shifts and transfer of wealth from parents to children. I think the question we really need to be asking is not what someone's status is, but really more where that money actually came from. That will give you a better idea of whether that is foreign money, aside from all the technicalities of status and paperwork. But I think the ones that have truly been driving up the market here in Toronto for the last 10, 15 years are actually the new Canadian citizens who've gone through the proper channels, paperwork, and they truly live in the country now. They bring their families and they bring their buckets of cash over from where they came from, usually from places like China, Korea, Iran, and even also some from the Middle East too. Back when immigration policies were a little more lax. Back then when you immigrated, you were allowed to bring all of your money, so your entire net worth, over to Canada. And it's these new millionaire immigrants that came over, they started investing heavily into the market, propping up prices and profiting handsomely from it as well too. Most usually come over with a few $1,000,000 in assets, and they become shocked to learn that you can actually buy property without having to put all cash down to buy it. So it's a no-brainer, right? What's a mortgage? You'll give me how much? At what interest rate? Hold on, let the party begin.
Bro, it's biggest thing in Europe, bro. It's best in Europe, bro.
It is so hard to classify who a foreign buyer actually is. Of course, there are the clear ones who are just parking their money here. They don't live here. They don't pay any taxes. They don't spend any time here. They just want to invest in a growing market. Then there are those who immigrate legitimately, who are probably too old to go to school and to try to compete with a millennial in the workplace, especially with the language barriers and all. And all they want to do is just stay busy, set up roots for their family, and try to make a living just like everybody else. Just so happens that they have a few $1,000,000 to play with, and they understand real estate and business because that's how they got all their money in the first place. If you were in the same position as a new immigrant in a new country and you had a few $1,000,000 to play with, I'll bet you probably do the same thing. I bet you would. So does that still count as a foreign buyer? In the government's eyes, no, it doesn't, because they have all the paperwork, they've gone through the process and all the proper channels to become a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. I would personally consider these to be foreign buyers because the money is actually coming from somewhere else. It's coming from another country. But to the Canadian government, that doesn't qualify. Those are considered local Canadians. Hence, that's what I was talking about. Local money. So therein lies the difficulty and controversy and a big fog around this question of who is a foreign buyer. And where is this foreign capital coming from? Tomato. I suspect many Vancouverites might agree with what I'm about to say here. And that is, the tax is a step in the right direction. A little bit late, but it's a step in the right direction. However, it probably won't have much of an impact on the marketplace in dampening the price appreciation because, again, like I said, most of that is actually locally driven. Unless you want to stop everybody from buying, so Canadian citizens and permanent residents. But I think it's probably going to be pretty hard to stop this freight train full of bricks that we call the Toronto and Vancouver real estate markets. What we might actually start seeing is increased demand in Toronto and the GTA region because of this tax, as many investors and buyers start moving their money out of the Vancouver market. We're even seeing activity pick up in Montreal and even in some areas outside of the major markets where investors are seeking returns, cash flow, gains, and appreciation. And it doesn't matter which market it's in. Not to scare you there, but I think more of the East Asian money is actually going to be coming into the GTA region. So be prepared for that. The best thing you can do is be smart, be savvy, work with the right people, and position yourself right so you can take advantage of this wave of buying activity. Because I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon, and the government measures are probably not going to be enough to slow things down. Because there's always alternate ways to purchase property. And if there's anything I know well, it's how Asian buyers react respond to the marketplace and what they're most interested in buying. They will usually go anywhere where there's opportunity to make money. So it's not necessarily always a lifestyle decision for them. So I hope this video provided you some insight into the Toronto and Vancouver real estate markets. I know many people locally and even abroad are perplexed by what's going on here in these two big cities. So you can better understand these complicated subjects and make better decisions for yourself and your families when it comes to real estate. If you're an investor and would like the inside scoop on how to cash in on this East Asian money that is coming to the Toronto and GTA region, give me a call so I can help you find the right strategy. Or if you simply want to buy as a homeowner and you want to have better price appreciation on your property, give me a call for that as well too. Woo! That was a long one. Sorry guys. I just wanted to clear up some common misconceptions and myths about the marketplace here in Toronto, about foreign buyers, foreign capital, you know, all that jazz. I hope it makes sense and I hope it clarifies some of those lingering questions you might have. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to give me a call, hit me up on Facebook, send me a text message, or even leave me a comment on YouTube telling me I'm doing a great job. I'd love to help you answer your question and help you better position yourselves for the future. So until next time guys, hope you're having a great summer. Please soak it all in while you still can. Talk to you soon.